On this episode of Opolis Public Radio, we dig into how the gig economy has evolved, what the current work landscape looks like with COVID-19, the structure of the employment commons, and how you can join the Opolis Genesis Guild. So welcome to episode 3 of Opolis Public Radio. Today, I'm joined by Eddie Pastore, our steward and co-founder of Opolis. He oversees our strategy and finance and has been with the project since the beginning. So since this was all sort of hashed out on the back of a napkin. Along with being responsible for the overall financial strategy and operational direction, Eddie assists in leading the product management and oversees our day-to-day accounting, finance, and HR activities. So he's got quite a bit on his plate. So Eddie, why don't you tell a little bit about how you got here and why you're still here?
Yeah. Hey, John. Thanks for having me.
What's up, Eddie?
Yeah. Working from home like everybody. But yeah. Thanks for having me. How did we get here?
I hog-tied you and drug you, and I drug you into the back of my car and said you're not going anywhere until
pretty much. I'm actually changed to this desk right here.
Right.
So no. It's been an interesting journey for me. I never would have expected to end up in employment, which I'm enjoying doing. But actually, my background is in more finance and real estate. I got my degree in real estate investments and development, and did some of that for a while, commercial real estate acquisitions, and then. It ended up actually, John, while you were doing staffing, you helped me get a job at Inspirato. When they
that was a long time ago. Man.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, they were just starting out. I was one of the early employees, and over the years there, helped raise $70 million in capital. We acquired our competitor. Did a bunch of crazy stuff. Grew our revenue to over $100 million, and I oversaw the operational budget there. And then you and I were at a ball game, and I had some crazy idea to do a startup. And you said to me, Eddie, that sounds an awful lot like a staffing company. And I had no idea what that meant, but I sure do now.
You sure do.
I sure do. So yeah, it's been a journey. We've, as you know, John, we've pivoted with some different iterations of what we were trying to do all along, which was really balance the power between employee and employer. And as you know, we tried to approach that from the recruiting side of things, which we had some wins and we had some lessons. And I think we came out of that knowing a lot. And so now we've developed this new product, the Commons, the Employment Commons, which of course we're excited to announce today.
Yeah, it's a big day.
It's a big day. Yeah, several years in the making in terms of trying to really flesh out exactly what we're trying to solve here. But I think we've really fine-tuned it. And
well, being that the goal has always been to democratize employment. We tried a bunch of different angles, but like this is the one that we feel like is the right one to actually create the baseline or the foundation, if you will, for individuals to actually experience equitable employment, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole point of how we got here.
Yeah, and just the evolution of where we're at with the gig economy and where we're at with the market in general. This is the perfect time. So there's a timing element here, and as you said, we've always been trying to democratize employment, and we feel like this is the way to really get that started. We've got a lot to do still, right? We're going to layer on much more functionality, but we've got a base here. We've got a foundation that should really help freelancers with their employment.
Well, what's really funny is we call them freelancers because that's kind of what we call them today. But like, this really fits everybody at scale, right? Like eventually we're not going to call people who work independently freelancers. We're going to call them just people that are work. Like work is going to change, right? Like it just happens to be that the initial cohort of our, call it target audience is really freelancers. But, in the end, we're really moving toward having this framework be available for everybody. which I think is really exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. And in a lot of ways, we're returning back to what folks did, prior to the 19th century, prior to actually even Henry Ford, right, with the 40-hour work week.
I think the stats are 1908, 88% of people were self-employed.
Self-employed, probably working different sort of like doing different things, doing different trades.
Tradesmen,
however they could make a dollar, right? Stuff on the weekends, maybe, and then doing some sort of trade during the week, maybe multiple trades. And
it's really interesting that the Industrial Revolution, World War II, and the Great Depression drove everything towards what we know employment today.
Yeah, it's interesting how much disruption happens with things like the depressions and recessions. Even out of the Great Recession, you had, the sharing economy really was born out of that, which led to a lot of the things that we consider to be gig economy now, like Uber and Lyft are the obvious ones, right? But there are so many others.
Hundreds,
and so it will be interesting to see what comes out of this recession that we're in now, because 5 years from now, I don't see the freelance/gig economy getting smaller. If anything, it's getting bigger. It's so big now, it's impacting legislature.
The prediction is huge.
Yeah, I think
percent were projected to be involved in it this year, 2020, 50% within a couple of years, and then 2028, it's like 90 million people or something. I mean, the U.S. labor force is only 160 million or so kind of people.
Yeah, one stat that I read actually predicted that by 2021, a majority of people will be participating in the gig economy. So over 50%. I mean, different studies say different things, but I wouldn't be surprised. So, there's some pros and there's some cons to this evolution. I think people who are already participating in it know that the freedom of working for yourself and just the pride that comes with that, and the balance of power that you have with employers is a big win. But there are some downsides too, and that is that you have the administrative burden of handling your taxes and keeping track of everything compliance related. And some people, they don't know what they don't know. Some people may end up with penalties and fines because they didn't follow certain things. And so with our product, we'll get into that, but that's one of the major things that we help solve is that we make it easy. We make it extremely hands-off for somebody to really be self-employed and feel like they are working, as a W-2 worker. Because in some ways they really are, but they control and own that relationship. So, but yeah, the gig economy, nothing new, right? The term gig actually came from like early 1900s, like 1915, when jazz musicians were doing gigs, and that's kind of a way to play a gig. Anyway, that continued on as we mentioned. The Great Recession hits, and out of that, staffing companies were born shortly after that. And then by 1995,
wait. Yeah, it's you mean the dot-com boom in like the 80s is when the staffing companies popped up.
Well, Manpower came, if I'm correct,
Kelly Staffing the Kelly girls were like early 80s. That was like a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
but I guess what you're saying is like the behemoths, like the conglomerates, the commercial staffing, like mega staffing companies didn't really show up until like the early 90s.
Right, the mega, right. But people were being hired on demand, right? In 1940, 1950. There was this idea of like
flexible labor has been around for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And it has been, and we just haven't really referred to it as the gig economy until more recently. But yeah, 1995, I think that I read that 10% of people were considered contingent or on demand or flexible workers, right? And that number is much greater now. It's approaching 40%. So
look at Gen Z. 53% of them are already freelancing full time. They don't want full-time jobs. That's the 22 and under ish crowd that's in the labor force now. Like they don't want full-time jobs.
Yeah,
they're actively like intentionally not wanting full-time jobs. Why do you think that is? I have a theory.
Well, I think there's benefits to working on different projects, and the velocity of work is very appealing to somebody who
it's the freedom.
Yeah, it's a freedom. And it's the challenge too. I mean, it can get quite boring staying at the same job for 10 years. Most people don't do that anyways.
Well, they're not the corporate ladder and the corporate gambit that Xers and boomers ran. People don't want to do that anymore. They're not interested in it because the mirage of loyalty is gone.
Yeah,
right? And they don't believe that. Well, if I stick around for 10 years, there's no belief that there's actually going to be something better for them at the end of the rainbow. Like they're just like, well, I'd rather diversify my skills. I'd rather have more variety. I'd rather not be bored. I'd rather, sample a lot of different things. Freedom and flexibility seems to have taken over. Don't you think?
Yeah, and it could also be that the compensation and the benefits and the stock options just aren't as lucrative as maybe they were. And so what's the incentive to stick with one company?
There isn't any really.
Yeah. And I think
unless you care about beanbags and ping pong and beer on tap, which I don't think most people care about really as much as companies
not maybe as much anymore. It is a nice perk to have when you're young, I guess. But you can get that with a co-working space.
You can have that in your basement.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
or in your commons at your condo complex. Like, yeah, I get it.
Right.
So, okay, let's fast forward now. You talked about the Great Recession. So here we are in the Great Pandemic, right? 2020. Mm-hmm. 36% of U.S. workers were participating in the gig economy, which equates to 57 million people. And now we've got something like 36 million people. It might be slightly less than that now because we had 2.5 million jobs added in the month of May. But like 30 million plus people that are literally out of work.
Out of work.
And what's that going to? Yeah, so do I. Everybody does. I mean, you can't have, a fifth of the U.S. workforce in and out of work. What is it now? 14% or something officially, and then add another 5 for those that have kind of like chosen to not participate in the workforce for some reason.
Right.
So let's just say it's somewhere between 15 and 20% in reality. 1 in 5. Okay, like you have to know somebody that's unemployed, right? Like it's not possible that you don't. What does it look like now? What's the next evolution in your mind for the gig economy?
Well, as I said, I know some folks that are unemployed. They have turned to Grubhub and Lyft, and one of them actually got a job with a third party that does Amazon delivery. Those are just some
side
big
hustles.
Examples of side hustles, right? And then they're making this their placeholders. This is their primary source of income now. And the question is, if traditional jobs, when traditional jobs come back, will people have gotten so used to having that lifestyle? Will they want to go back to the traditional workforce? And then the question is, will technology advance to help people participate more and more as a independent worker? And that's partly what we're solving too, is through our technology and through our platform, we make it easy. So yeah, I would predict it will grow more than the numbers a year ago that everyone was predicting.
Yeah, I think it's going to just torpedo into the stratosphere. I think it's going to move. I think the idea of the gig economy, or whatever you want to call it, I prefer like the fluidity of work, right? Like, we call it the gig economy, but it's morphing into something different. It's morphing into like the way that we do business, right? It's morphing into, it's going to be common that people have more than one job. It's going to be common that people have more than one revenue stream. It's going to be common that people are going to call it de-risk their employment by not putting all their eggs in one basket. Because what happens if, think about this, okay? 50 years ago, the notion of loyalty was really the key, right? So, like, Henry Ford built this system of incentives for employees to come work for car manufacturers, which were largely copied by other car manufacturers and then other corporations. Standardized work week, vacation, healthcare, benefits, retirement, pension, all these things were kind of new ideas. And in the beginning, they were competitive, right? So it was about competition for talent. And then fast forward 40 years and it becomes table stakes, right? So now everybody does it. If not, it's legislated that you have to do it. So we're sort of peeling out of that. And, our friend Kevin Owaki over at Gitcoin calls it the unbundling of the relationship, right? Where the employee and the employer are sort of shifting the dynamics between their relationship. And this sort of like, I'm going to give you all of my time and all of my attention isn't really what people are expecting anymore. And in a lot of cases, people don't even want it on both sides, right? Like corporations are like, well, I don't really need you full time. And then, the talent or the worker is like, well, I've got these other gigs and these other opportunities. Can we figure out something in the middle? And I think this sort of fluidity and this flexibility is really going to become the norm. And then I'll give you an example. Let's say I had 3 or 4 different gigs going on at one time. Let's call it 4 just so I can do the math easier. And let's say one of them lays me off or just, cuts off the contract. I'm in a much less risky situation than if I have all of my time and attention tethered to one client, right? Or one source. Mm-hmm. To me, that makes a lot of sense that we're going to de-risk employment, not just, have fun and diverse experiences and new learning and, just, better work output and all that. But like, we're actually creating economic sense. It's smart. It's actually de-risking it for everybody.
Yeah, and it becomes much more like a trade. Think of painters that are independently employed. They find opportunities, and when there's work, they work, and they might actually have a skill doing tile work as well, so they do some tile on the side. It's similar, but it's with the creative class. It's with the developers and designers and people in marketing and accounting and things like that. And I think there are some situations, and this might be maybe more common, where you work on a project, right? It's a 3-month project. You form a team of independent folks. You work on the project. You complete the project. Maybe it goes a little long, whatever. Maybe you start another one. They sort of overlap, but it's more project-based work is how I would kind of think of it. But yeah, there will be the folks that kind of split up their hours and they work 10 hours here and 10 hours there and 10 hours there. We have a contractor right now that
flash orgs, exactly. Flash organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Flash orgs. So you can quickly and easily organize, execute work product, and then disband, and then share in the rewards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And right now, the traditional model is, especially in tech, is you would join a development shop, and you would be a team, and then someone doing business development with finance, and you would be told where to go, what project to work on, and you would have your team there, and then the house would take most of the revenue, right? And then give you a base salary that is like half of what they're billing the client. In the future, the benefit of flash teams, as you called it, is there's no middleman, and there's no house taking 50%. There might be a platform or some kind of technology that takes a reasonable fee, but a 50% markup is a little unfair to the worker.
Well, it's pretty extractive. I mean, we know that game pretty well, and having you and I together W2 tens of thousands of people in a staffing situation, right? So no judgment, but it does seem pretty unbalanced in my opinion, which is a good reason why we're not doing that anymore, right? I mean, we've made the commitment to democratizing that experience.
That's right.
For individuals.
It makes sense for a recruiter to get a fee, a reasonable fee for finding an opportunity. I agree with that. What seems a little excessive is when a recruiter places a contract employee and makes $5 an hour off of that person's work indefinitely for a year or for 2 years, right? Well,
Or
that person
forever.
is placed or forever, however long they're placed there. That seems a little excessive. So we're trying to balance that and put more money in the pockets of the worker, the person doing the work. But there's still value at every stage. So will there still be a place for a recruiter? Sure, right? And will there be a fee paid to that recruiter? Yeah, sure.
We've talked a lot about the role of the recruiter evolving from sales primarily to being more of an advocate or a talent agent of sorts, right?
We're like a real estate agent or your tax.
Yeah, like where they're brokering one side or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right. So what do you want to discuss next? You want to get into where we're at now? There's a lot of future stuff we're talking about, but I'm excited for today because we actually have this product now for freelancers to plug into and start seeing benefit right now. We don't have flash teams or things like that. Those are things that we want to get to, but we do have a lot of exciting stuff. So the I guess the Commons is official. It's the legal entity is incorporated. I guess we could talk about that, how that works, if you want.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the Commons and let's talk about what the heck it is and how somebody joins. So let's unpack this a piece at a time here. So the Commons, what is it? The Employment Commons.
Oh yeah, the Employment Commons. What is it? Okay, so we have created essentially a decentralized entity for employment, and what that means is it's a Colorado co-op, and it's owned by its members, and its members will be we have a couple layers. So there are guilds which are actually more like districts, I guess, legally. But these are this is a mechanism, I guess, for folks to join and have a governance for their particular district or their guild. And I imagine people will join those based on location, where they work, what they do, maybe some of their political interests, and otherwise. But so if I am a freelancer, I need to have a company, right? That's step one. I have to have either an LLC or C corp or an S corp, and that entity then joins.
Why do I need to do that?
Well, you need to do that for liability reasons, also for compliance reasons, because you will, as a freelancer, you're now going to use your company really as it is the entity that will be billing folks, collecting revenue, and then also paying yourself as an employee. So this is a way for you to really control and own your employment. So you need to have an entity, and in addition to that, you need to have you need to elect to be treated as either an S corp or a C corp at a federal level for tax purposes. And that's just so that everything's compliant, that you can employ yourself, and that all of the taxes can kind of flow through our platform, so you don't have to worry about it. So I mean, I can unpack that more, but I think from a simple perspective, it's for compliance, for your protection, and it also creates some risk, some aversion of risk, really, and less liability on you as an individual.
Creating a framework, or what it does is give individuals corporate protections and risk mitigation and administrative protocols that basically professionalize their small business, their individual work and revenue streams, right? So it's not just, well, I got this box of receipts and a lot of people don't take their accounting terribly seriously, but in the future of work, we're going to have to, right? Because everyone's still going to be expecting to pay their taxes and things.
Yeah, look, if you're going to work independently, you really are owning your own business, and so forming an entity is the best thing to do for many reasons, as you mentioned. So it's not hard. You can form an LLC very quickly. There are services that will do it for a couple $100s, and it's very, very quick and easy. And I think there's one form for you to fill out too. If you form an LLC and then you want to elect to be treated as a C corp or an S corp, it's one form that you file. And then you just need to make sure that
it's pretty easy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and then really the difference between using your social security number just as an individual and then actually having an entity is now you have to file a corporate tax return at the end of the year. But you were having to do all of that accounting anyway, keeping track of your receipts, keeping track of your income. So now instead of doing that on your personal return, you're taking all that information over into your business tax return.
So, yeah, no, for sure. So let's talk about the legal framework of this. And I know we're going to do a whole series on this with our legal steering committee. Yev Muchnick of Launch Legal and Jason Weiner of Jason Weiner Law in Boulder. We're going to do that on our next episode, I think. But high level, it's a co-op. Right? I mean, we're in the blockchain crypto space, right? But like, really, this product, we built this for regular people. I mean, the Web3 or blockchain technology that we're utilizing today is under the covers, or it's completely optional in the form, like crypto payroll and things like that. But everything is being built for just regular people instead of, expecting them to have to jump through a bunch of hoops to manage private keys and things like that, right? So it's an employment co-op. Right? So tell me about that.
Yeah, it's an employment co-op, and the reason we wanted to go that route is because it's not owned by one, or it's not owned by a board of directors or investors or shareholders or anything like that. It's really truly owned by its members, and
which can be lots of different kinds of people, right? So we haven't excluded investors, but it's more of a symmetrical distribution of value creation, right?
Yes, with an emphasis on benevolence and the balance between employee and employer. So this entity, this co-op, technically becomes an employer of record, and we can get into that later. But there's no tragedy of the boardroom, and what I mean by that is, there's no one at the top saying, "Okay, great, we grew to a certain point. Now let's increase prices. We can," which is something you see, like with Amazon, right? They had initially said several years ago that their mission was to keep prices low as possible. That was their goal and their mission. They've changed that mission. That is no longer their mission. So they are not keeping prices lower than anything else. And they've been raising even their Prime membership for no reason related to cost. It was purely profit. So we want to avoid things like that. So we do have that built in to the co-op.
Yeah, well, we call that structural benevolence, right? So usually as platforms or ecosystems grow, the divide between consumers and the platform, the alignment grows apart, right? So what we're doing is we're trying to maintain that alignment so that multidimensionally, not just shareholders benefit, right? It's contributors, users, members, suppliers, investors that all benefit. And the scalability of this, we believe, is much bigger than what you would see in a traditional just corporate centralized interest strategy, right? This is, futuristically, this could be a global employment framework as a public utility for everyone.
Right.
Which is, it's ambitious, I know. We talk about this all the time, but it excites me that we think we've solved a lot of the friction between, the idea of decentralized technology and centralized governance systems, right? Because that's been one of my biggest, complaints about the Web3 ecosystem is, we got a lot of a really great technology, but when it comes to go to market or productizing, we really revert back to the centralized structure of corporations and centralized investors and centralized interests. And yeah, it's fine. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying that if we're going to take the leap into the future and to really create a sustainable ecosystem for everybody to use, we've got to get to a place of stakeholdership, not shareholdership. Does that make sense? Where it's like,
that's right. So so not to say that there cannot and will not be investors,
of course,
and not to say that there will not be value created from this, because that's definitely the goal. And perhaps there's we're still thinking through ways that the members would also benefit from a rise in value of what we're building. So, but right, yeah. Thanks for clarifying that.
No problem. I mean, I love the idea of capitalism moving into a new chapter of its life to be more community-based, right? Network-based capitalism, where it's multidimensional shareholder or stakeholder value creation, and you could play any number of roles inside the ecosystem, including investor. But instead of operating from a place of scarcity, we're now saying that value creation can be scaled infinitely, right? I mean, in theory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is greenfield stuff. So like, I haven't really seen anybody yet in the mainstream of things successfully launch a kind of new age or next generation Web3 powered enabled technology that's been mass adopted, right? I mean, no one's done it yet. And I mean, our theory is that everybody needs employment, and it makes it very easy for people to onboard to the space.
Yeah, employment is a sensitive thing. It's not like you're making a widget, and
it's the most sensitive thing.
Yeah, it's the most sensitive thing, and it's where we spend a majority of our time, right? Is at work, and I think we're seeing maybe even a shift to capitalism now with this pandemic, because large employers, they're having to be faced with this decision of what do we do with our employees? What do we do? And many of them are choosing to continue to employ folks. And that's a very different approach than I think companies were taking before the pandemic. And so you're seeing kind of the shift of this recognition of, well, we're largely dependent on our employees. This is people based, and like people really drive a company. And maybe, hopefully, there's a little bit more of appreciation of that after this is all said and done. But I think that's what we have in mind, is that we know that work is sensitive, and we're dealing with people's lives here. So this is the last thing you would want to try to maximize and extract as much as you can from your customers, who happen to be the people, the workers, right? So that's why we have to strike that balance between we're providing a service, so let's have a reasonable service fees built in. If we integrate with other partners and add different features and functionality, there probably need to be kind of some pay-as-you-go, a la carte, cafeteria plan type thing, where people pay for what they use.
They pay for what they consume. I mean, that's been our whole theory the whole time, is, making the base framework super low cost and as close to free as possible. And then also being transparent about pricing, right? Because we are going to be using algorithms and bonding curves to determine price long-term.
Right.
And then secondarily, people have the total choice to choose what they want to consume, right? So if they don't want to pay for a service, or if they want to do it on their own, or if they want to have somebody else do it, they can.
Yep. So I guess we covered the legal structure and the co-op. More to come on next episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone gets to meet the legal team, which would be great.
So let's talk about features, and let's talk about the big one, healthcare. Right?
Healthcare. Yes.
So healthcare. When we did our surveys of freelancers, co-working space people, gig workers, the number one thing that they talked about that was most important to them was the difficulty to find good healthcare. And when I say good healthcare, it's a combination of quality of the plan and the expense, right? So you can get cheap plans or catastrophic plans, but they're not good coverage. So it's really covering both, right? How do I get a high quality healthcare plan at an affordable price?
Right. So many independent contractors or self-employed folks right now go to the exchange. They go to what's Obamacare, right? And it's state ran and it differs by state. And if you make over a certain amount of money, in Colorado, I think it's close to $60,000. There's no government assistance, and so you're paying full price. And in a lot of ways, you're having to pay in to help subsidize folks who do make less, right? So if you're making a decent income and you go to an exchange to get health care, you're not really able to get a lot of great options, or you're going to pay for it. And maybe they have some cheap plans, but the quality isn't there. And there's so many nuances in healthcare, right? There's co-pays and co-insurance and out-of-pocket maxes and deductibles and all these different things, and it can be very confusing. I think one of the downsides of the exchange, though, most of the time, is that the network is small. They tell you exactly where you can go in terms of like urgent cares and hospitals and doctors and things like that. And it can get complicated when you are traveling out of state. With our plan, through the employment commons and through this sort of legal structure, we're able to group everyone together under one group plan. So this is truly, what a mid-sized company would be able to get with their employees, right, and offer their folks. So if you've been a W-2 worker and you've had good benefits, that was a group plan. That's what we are able to offer freelancers now. So by joining as a member under your entity, we make it really easy for you to employ yourself, get a paycheck, we withhold the taxes, you get access to these benefits. And, they range from, if you're just an individual, they range from about $260 a month to our most expensive plan is just over $400 a month. And it's a very rich plan, $500.
You're just talking about the individual, right?
The individual, yeah. And we also have employee plus spouse or employee plus children or family. And the rates go up
just
from
like
there.
Anybody else offers.
Just like anybody else offers. So you can go to commons.opolis.co today, and you can check out what we have to offer. There's a benefit guide you can download, and if you go through the onboarding process there, you can pick which things you want. Now, also that includes vision, the prices that I gave you. So that's a package deal of medical and vision.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Let me just summarize this. So what you're telling me is that. Or what you're telling our audience, I should say, because I already know this, right? But
Yeah.
what you're telling our audience is that individuals working independently can become a member of the Opolis Employment Commons and access top drawer health insurance with a top tier provider that has national access, for much less than what they could find on the open exchange.
That's right. So we have chosen Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it is a massive network, and it's national. Of course, everyone's heard of the name, and you can go to Blue Cross Blue Shield, and you can go to their site, and you can find a doctor, and you can see. I mean, they have more than enough providers. So it is very robust. It's national. You can travel from state to state, and you can look in network, and there you go. Every urgent care practically will be in there, and of course, primary care physicians and everything else. So very exciting, and it's extremely affordable. I would say in many cases it will be cheaper than the exchange, and it will be much better in terms of quality of the plan. Yeah. And you can do that today. You can join today. And in addition to that, there are other benefits to joining. So besides the healthcare, we take the burden of remitting taxes, withholding things, withholding your benefits, right? So
so we refer to these as trustee services, right? So the Opolis trustee provides services to the employment commons that ultimately ensures that all these individuals are compliant with withholdings and benefits administration and reports and reporting and whatever needs to be done.
Exactly. At a state level, local level, federal level, we ensure that the right taxes are being paid, withheld, and paid, and all of the regulation is being followed.
Now, for those of our friends in the cryptocurrency space, you can get paid in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, and DAI, right? So, how does that work? Is that compliant too? I mean, we tell them a little bit about how we do that.
On our dashboard, you can easily select what percentage of your net pay you want paid out in what currencies. And so what we'll do then is on the back end, right when we process payroll, we're going to document and report the value of the currency at that time. And just like we do with USD, we're going to withhold the federal income tax, because it is wages, right? You're getting paid wages, but you're getting wages in the form of property, which is the currency. And so we take the value of that currency at that time, and we do everything that we would do with USD. So your federal income tax, your state income tax, and we would even liquidate some of that to help any of the benefits, any of the deductions that you might have, like an HSA, all of that. And by the way, we're not charging any exchange fees either. So you're getting cryptocurrency without having to go to Coinbase and pay them some percentage every time you want to exchange. So, but at the end of the day, the experience is like this. Your wages are $5,000. Let's say you want $1,000 in Bitcoin. So that's gross. We take out all the taxes and do all the accounting for you, and then at the end of the day, you have a net amount of Bitcoin, let's call it $800, in your wallet, and then you have the remaining net pay in USD in your personal bank account.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it makes it essentially completely compliant for individuals to accept cryptocurrency as bona fide payroll. And it makes it also easier, not beholden to the employer to have to pay it in that currency. So in theory, somebody could pay in DAI and somebody could take Bitcoin, right? Or if they want to pay in USD and I want to take 20% Ethereum, 20% USDC, 20% DAI, and the rest in USD, I could do that.
You could do that. That's right. And
cool.
and in a lot of ways, maybe it's just a convenience thing. Maybe it's just a way to just make it that much more automated, so that you're not having to. Maybe you want to just continuously invest in those currencies. Well, and it's automatic now, right? It's just happening twice a month, just like your pay. And on that note, I mean, that's a lot of what we're offering too, is the administrative services, the automation, financial automation. You're not having to keep track of the tax that you're going to have to report quarterly as an independent anymore. It's all done.
Because you're an employee. You're your own employee.
You're your
self-sovereign employee.
Self-sovereign. You control your employment, but you are an employee. You get a paycheck. The taxes are withheld, they're remitted. You're getting a W-4 at the end of the year, so your tax returns are very easy. You do have that corporate tax return that you have to do, but again, that's really more related to business expenses like buying a computer or certain subscriptions and things like that, which you would be doing anyway. So it's a lot more hands-off and it's a lot more stress-free. I know folks who make a decent amount of money, and they don't really keep track of how much of that is tax at the end of the year, right? And so they get the 1099s at the end of the year, and they're somewhat shocked that, $20,000 I owe the government.
Right.
I hope they still have it, right? Some people spend it. And then what happens, right? I actually know someone who's been tracked down by the IRS, and they are garnishing her bank account. Don't do that. There's no need to do that. You can join Opolis.
Especially with all the just question marks around the cryptocurrency space. If you have any interest in that, do it this way. I mean, if we want to legitimize the movement, what better way than to integrate it into payroll and make it part of everyday life? What it seems to me that they really care about, as you just mentioned about your friend, is just that people pay their taxes, right? And we can thumb our nose at that all day long, but that's just going to land us in jail, right? So my theory is, like, if we really want mass adoption, let's just integrate it into the existing structure and make it easier for people to get it.
Let's make it easy, and that's what we do. And this might sound daunting to a lot of people, and it sort of is, right? And I think if folks go to our site, sign up. I mean, it is a true onboarding, and it's a legal thing. So there are forms that we require to be compliant. But once you get past that process, it really is set it and forget it. It's like clockwork. It's predictable. It's the first and third Friday of every month. You get a paycheck. You fund that 9 days before. The invoice is sent to you before that. You connect your bank account. The funds come out of your business bank account, and they get pushed into your personal account. So once you're all set up, let Opolis, the trustee, do what we do best, and you do what you do best, right? As a freelancer, you go as an independent worker, right? Go find opportunities, build teams, build cool product, change the world. And don't worry about whether or not you set aside and withheld the right amount of taxes, and whether or not you've got good health care, or whether the IRS is going to question your accounting of cryptocurrency and accuse you of money laundering or something like that. You don't have to lose any sleep. With Opolis, we've got you covered.
All right, so let's just kind of wrap it into all right, well, what's live today, Eddie? What do we need to do? What does somebody need to do if they want to join the Commons? What do they got to do?
Go to commons.opolis.co and walk through the steps. It's fairly straightforward. You'll need your business documents. You'll need some forms of ID, and you'll need a business bank account to connect. But basically, you can choose your healthcare options there. And by the way, it's not just medical that we offer. We offer dental, and we also have short-term disability, long-term disability, basic life, and vision is included in the medical. And so you can sort of pick and choose to some extent. Although everyone will have the benefit of getting the short-term, long-term, and life. So you pick your options there. The tool will walk you through it. You connect your bank account, and then you stake. And what that really is you're prepaying next month's insurance. So whatever you decide to choose, we need to collect 1 month. We will then store that as
stake a deposit, right?
It's a deposit of sorts, right? And so if you leave the platform for any reason, and there are no outstanding medical premiums, then we would return those amounts to you. So in a way, it's you're staking. It's a deposit. It's kind of like you're prepaying for the next month's insurance, because we're always paying a month in advance, right? So and then that's it. Someone from the Opolis team will reach out to you and help you get fully onboarded. You'll need to estimate how much you expect to make, and what I mean by that is how much you expect to bill your clients in a given year. So say you're thinking about $80,000 is what you would collect from different employer clients or different sources. You would put that in there, and then we would back into what a net wage would be after all the other expenses, and then you connect your personal bank account, and you just give us the account number, and we would ACH those funds over to you on the first and third Friday. And so we've got support. We've got a team available to answer questions if you have them. But I think it's as straightforward as it's ever going to be to become a self-sovereign worker through the Commons, with Opolis as the trustee, ensuring that the compliance is taken care of and that we're meeting all your needs.
It's pretty great, man. It's been a long time coming. A long time to figure out how to democratize employment and maintain the right incentives and the right structural benevolence and the right tech. And oh my goodness, the choreography of this has been quite a bit. So thank you for your time today, Eddie, and thank you for your contribution to this massive effort. I certainly will speak for myself, and I know the team feels the same way. I couldn't do it without you. And it's been a monumental effort on behalf of so many different people, but you've been critical to it. So just publicly, I just wanted to thank you for just being you and for contributing to this vision and this belief. So
thanks, John. It's been a privilege and an honor, and it's definitely been a ride. So
that's no joke.
Let's keep it going.
So we have some questions here. I'm going to start with I'll just kind of remind the viewership here that if you've got questions, you can dump them into the Q&A section. I've got 4 of them right now, so I'm going to try to answer them to the best of my ability. If I don't do a good job, do a good enough job, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll do our best to answer questions. I mean, we've been working on this for quite some time, but I'm sure there's going to be some things that we haven't quite comprehensively enough covered in our FAQs or whatnot. So just bear with us as we roll all of this out. So the first question is from Todd Youngblood. Thanks, Todd, for the question. He said, do you imagine adding options for organizations like design studios and or creative agencies who depend heavily on freelancers? As a strategist in a design studio, I think they would be interested in using this type of blockchain-powered platform to manage equity and or revenue sharing contracts. So this is a really, really good question. We get asked a lot about decentralized autonomous organizations or DAOs, and how are we different from a DAO? What is, or you're an employment DAO. It's like, well, kind of. The way that we see it is we're a decentralized employment organization, or the Commons acts as a decentralized employment organization with guilds inside of it that basically have their own goals and, viewpoints on things, and the governance is handled in a decentralized way. But from a consumption of services, this would kind of talk about one of the futuristic elements and layers of what we're talking about. So there are a few players in the cryptocurrency space that we're talking about building these type of, sort of procurement mechanisms, if you will. Whereas, an entity or a corporation is using the services of groups of people and distributing value to these individuals on some sort of recurring basis, right? So let's say it's monthly or quarterly, and I'm receiving this value, but it's not really just me, it's a group of people, right? So how would this work? Well, one of the features that will be coming to Opolis will be the ability to tie in other, directly your revenue streams. So whether it's coming from a decentralized autonomous organization or a DAO, or it's coming from some other corporate entity, or whatever it is, you'll be able to tie these in so that you'll be able to directly pipe in your resources, okay, your compensation, in other words. Now, as it relates to the agencies themselves, what this does is it ultimately will create a marketplace of talent. So as the ecosystem develops and as there becomes a concentration of talent like designers or creatives that might be interesting to a design agency of sorts, then absolutely. Now, if a design agency is looking to use this type of mechanism to de-risk themselves in the form of maybe offering this as an option to freelancers to use the commons to basically offer health insurance and such to individuals, absolutely. We've got a large staffing company out of New York City, actually, who we're partnering with on that exact front. They've got a fairly significant amount of their workforce is 1099, but these folks have no interest in being W-2s, and they don't really have any of the underpinnings that you would normally see in an employment relationship. So there's absolutely conversations that can be had on this topic. So Todd, if you have any if you want to talk more about that, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to unpack it and see where we are in the process and what we'd be able to do to help set that up for you. The next question we have is from Tommy Cox. What's up, Tommy? Long time no chat. He said, what if I'm outside the United States? Are these benefits only applicable within the U.S.? So the way healthcare works, well, let me back up. So first and foremost, we are currently launching only in the U.S. for U.S. qualified workers. Okay, so in other words, you have to be a U.S. citizen, and the services of Opolis, the accounting components, or the financial automation, if you will absolutely apply to anybody anywhere. So it doesn't matter where you are. Now, the trick with this is healthcare. If you're working outside of the U.S., healthcare has restrictions on what covers you and where. So if you're in Spain and you have Blue Cross Blue Shield, it's almost 100% certain they're not going to cover you because you're not on U.S. soil. So there are exclusions to the healthcare coverage itself. So if you are working domestically, then you're totally fine. And even if you're, traveling or whatever, sort of intermittently, that should be okay too. It'd be probably an out-of-network expense. But there's nuances to that. Now, if you're spending a lots amount of time out of the country and you're not coming back anytime soon, it would probably not be, at this stage of the game, something from a healthcare standpoint that would cover you entirely. But it has nothing to do with really what we're offering as Opolis. It's really just how the healthcare system works in general here in the U.S. If you have more questions, Tommy, feel free to reach out to us, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. Or if we need to talk through any specifics. TK, what's up, Taylor? Could you speak to the benefit of Opolis over typical social healthcare, i.e., Health First in Colorado? Yes. Okay. The first thing you have to understand about Opolis is we're not just doing this so people can get healthcare. This is a much grander play at scale. We're vertically integrating the entire employment experience. So healthcare is just one component. We do plan on diversifying the options of healthcare as much as we can over time. We do plan on pushing for legislation that offers that, as well as just diversifying as much as we can when it comes to the services, products, and offerings that come through the Opolis Commons. Now, that said, if people only want healthcare, Health First in Colorado is probably a decent way to find it. You can go to the open exchanges as well. We're not trying to replace the healthcare system. What we're doing is vertically integrating the entire experience. Now, the reason why we're doing this might not be obvious today, but futuristically speaking, if you had a commercial dashboard, your commercial identity that housed your employment, your paychecks, your history, your wallets, like your retirement plans, your insurances, and opportunities galore, wouldn't that make a lot of sense to have it in one place? This is the vertical integration and the optimization of people's commercial experience. If you want to think about it from a technological standpoint, although it's not a technological activity, we see this as the commercial protocol of a person's experience in their life, right? So aggregating everything to one place where they can manage it self-sovereignly, own their own work, own their own data, control all of their own features and functions, we think is really important. Secondarily, Health First in Colorado is, in my understanding, is a local to Colorado thing. They can only scale so much. In the context in which we've built this as a cooperative, as a commercial enterprise, we can scale this nationally as big as we want, and the bigger we get, the more advantageous it is for users. So long-term, big picture, it's just a much more comprehensive approach to providing this type of service. Thanks, Taylor. And then how does, Tommy, you got another question. How does the biweekly salary work if the freelance projects I'm working on are funded by grants and funds are released by Milestone? Good question. So we understand that this is probably a potential challenge for some people who get big chunks of money. Well, the way that it works, the mechanisms, we draw from your commercial bank account and we remit to your personal bank account. So if you haven't done that, that's best practice. It's probably the best way to do it. So if quarterly you get like a grant of $50,000, but it's like, well, how does that work? I don't really need all of that money. Well, that money can sit in your commercial account, and then Opolis can draw on it just like any old payroll company would. And that money will be drawn, all the withholdings done, benefits paid for, everything, and then remitted to your personal account or converted to cryptocurrency and sent to you in whatever form you've chosen. So the commercial and independent or individual elements of this are important to understand. So as long as you can kind of manage that cadence and calibrate how much money you're paying yourself on a biweekly basis, or it's really semi-monthly, on a semi-monthly basis, if you do that, there shouldn't be any issues or problems at all. So if you need help calibrating any of that or looking into how to manage that, feel free to reach out and we're happy to help. Let's see here. All right. Let's see. TF clarification. All right. Well, let's see. I think that's all of the questions we have for now. Let's see. I guess we're right at time anyway. So, thank you for joining us on this Opolis Public Radio episode. Eddie, I've had a great time chatting with you. Thanks again for everything you do, my friend. So for all of you those listening or watching this, remember to subscribe to Opolis YouTube channel for more videos like this, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts if you prefer for the audio version. If you are a freelancer or gig worker looking for an employment solution or to become a self-sovereign worker, make sure to join the Opolis Employment Commons today. That's opolis.co. You can join today. We'll see you in the Ethersphere. Thank you.